Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Vishnupada Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the second day of May, 2023 in San Diego, the glorious appearance day of Srimati Rukmini Devi. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Beginning a new chapter today, entitled The Divine and Demoniac Natures. Chapter 16, beginning on page 615. So I think we'll just do the first verse, and then I'll do the other two. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Abhayam Sattva Sangshuddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Dhanam Damash Chayagyascha Svadhyayas Tapa Arjavam. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Abhayam Sattva Sangshuddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Dhanam Damashta Yagyascha Svadhyayas Tapa Arjavam. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Abhayam Sattva Sangshuddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Dhanam Damashta Yagyascha Svadhyayas Tapa Arjavam. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Abhayam Sattva Sangshuddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Dhanam Damashta Yagyascha Svadhyayas Tapa Arjavam. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Abhayam Sattva Sangshuddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Dhanam Damashta Yagyascha Svadhyayas Tapa Arjavam. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Abhayam Sattva Sangshuddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Dhanam Damashta Yagyascha Svadhyayas Tapa Arjavam. Page 615. Okay. Word by words. Oh no, I'll chant the other two. You just try to chant, I'll do line by line. Okay? Yeah. Ahimsa satyam-akrodhas Tyaga shantirapaisunam Daya bhuteshvalo luptvam Mardavang hrirachapalam Tejachamaduti shaucham Adroho natimanita Pabandi sampadang daivim Abhijatasya bharata. Okay, word by words. I'll read through them quickly. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, Abhayam, fearlessness, sattva sangshuddhi, purification of one's existence, jnana, in knowledge, yoga, of linking up, vyavastitihi, the situation, dhanam, charity, damaha, controlling the mind, cha, and yajnaha, performance of sacrifice, cha, and svadhyayaha, study of Vedic literature, tapaha, austerity, arjavam, simplicity, ahimsa, non-violence, satyam, truthfulness, adroha, freedom from anger, tyaga, renunciation, shanti, tranquility, apaishanam, aversion to fault-finding, daya, mercy, bhuteshu, towards all living entities, ololuptvam, freedom from greed, mardavam, gentleness, modesty, achapalam, determination, tejaha, vigor, chama, forgiveness, dhritihi, fortitude, shaucham, cleanliness, adroha, freedom from envy, not atimanita, expectation of honor, bhavanti are sampadam, the qualities, daivim, the transcendental nature, abhijatasa, of one who is born of, bharata, O son of Bharat. Now, if they sound like good qualities to us, that means that we're leaning toward the divine nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharat, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. Page 616, Prabhu. Purport. We're going to break this up, not read the whole thing because it's very long. In the beginning of the 15th chapter, the banyan tree of this material world was explained. The extra roots coming out of it were compared to the activities of the living entities, some auspicious, some inauspicious. In the 9th chapter, also, the devas or godly, the asuras, the ungodly or demons, were explained. Now, according to Vedic rites, activities in the mode of goodness are considered auspicious for progress on the path of liberation. And such activities are known as daivi prakriti, transcendental by nature. Those who are situated in the transcendental nature make progress on the path of liberation. For those who are acting in the modes of passion and ignorance, on the other hand, there is no possibility of liberation. Either they will have to remain in this material world as human beings, or they will descend among the species of animals or even lower life forms. In this 16th chapter, the Lord explains both the transcendental nature and its attendant qualities, and the demoniac nature and its qualities. He also explains the advantage and disadvantages of these qualities. Advantages and disadvantages. The word abhijatasya, in reference to one born of transcendental qualities or godly tendencies, is very significant. To beget a child in a godly atmosphere is known in the Vedic scriptures as garbhadhana sanskara. If the parents want a child in the godly qualities, they should follow the 10 principles recommended for the social life of the human being. In the Bhagavad Gita, we have studied also before that sex life for begetting a good child is Krishna himself. Now, Prabhupada uses the word sex life to mean sex. It doesn't mean anything more than that. Sex is not condemned provided the process is used in Krishna consciousness. Those who are in Krishna consciousness, at least, should not beget children like cats and dogs, but should beget them so that they may become Krishna conscious after birth. That should be the advantage of children born of a father and mother absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer humble obeisances unto him and all members of Shri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So I stopped here because I wanted to explain a little bit about this Garbhadan Samskar and this importance of how one conceives children. So there's a... who knew about any of this, until Srila Prabhupada came? But the consciousness of the parents at the time of sex affects and determines what nature, what living entity will come in there and actually take shelter in the womb. This is completely unknown. So how, in Srila Prabhupada's movement, the Garbhadan Samskar, it may be more elaborate in India, but he gave us this thing. If you're, Vedic marriage, and there's so many vows you take, and then yes, it's time for conception. And as Prabhupada refers, Krishna says in the 7th chapter, Dharma Varuddha Buddhishu Kamasmi Bharatarshava, that I am sex that is not contrary to religious principles. So Srila Prabhupada said the main principle is that before conception, the man and the woman should chant 50 rounds of Hare Krishna, more than even the 16. The idea is to be completely Krishna conscious, and therefore a devotee will take shelter in the womb. Just like if we don't go back to Godhead, even if we do just a little bit of Krishna consciousness, then we're going to take birth in an auspicious family. And if we do a fairly decent amount of Krishna consciousness, we can take birth in a devotee family. So that's how we can take birth. If the parents are really Krishna conscious, they want to have a child who's a devotee, and they're following the orders of the spiritual master, then that's how we can take birth. So that's what this Garbhadan Samskara is all about. And Prabhupada is actually, I think, referring to the Abhijatasya at the end of the verse, right? Bhavanti sampadam daivim abhijatasya. Because the word jata means birth, you see. So here are those who have the sampadam means like a wealth. What does it say, sampadam? The qualities, okay. Or those who have divine qualities, abhijatasya bharata, who are born with divine qualities. So he begins from the end of these 3 verses. And now he's going to go through and systematically explain each of these qualities, beginning with fearlessness. And as we'll see, it's not that every member of the society is meant to have all of these qualities. They're divided into different characters, like the sannyasis are meant to be fearless. They have to go out and preach in very difficult circumstances, completely relying on Krishna. So that fearlessness is the first and essential quality for a sannyasi, as we'll find out. Hare Krishna, welcome. Now the deities will be open at 8:15, darshan. You're welcome to stay and attend the class, or you can lounge in the, relax in the patio here, whatever you like. It's up to you. Hare Krishna. If you need to have a seat, we have chairs, we have these benches. Okay, so I'll go on. The social institution known as varṇāśrama-dharma, the institution dividing society into 4 divisions of spiritual life and 4 occupational divisions or castes, is not meant to divide human society according to birth. Such divisions are in terms of educational qualifications. They are to keep the society in a state of peace and prosperity. The qualities mentioned herein are explained as transcendental qualities meant for making a person progress in spiritual understanding so that he can get liberated from the material world. So then he begins describing the qualities, beginning with the sannyasi. In the varṇāśrama institution, the sannyasi, or the person in the renounced order of life, is considered to be the head or spiritual master of all the social statuses and orders. The social statuses are the Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. The orders, means the spiritual orders, are the brahmachari, gṛhastha, Vaishya, what is it? Vānaprastha, thank you. Vānaprastha and sannyāsi. So it begins with the sannyasi. A Brahmin is considered to be the spiritual master of the 3 other sections of society. That means the varnas, namely the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras. But a sannyasi, who is on the top of the institution, is considered to be the spiritual master of the Brahmins also. For a sannyasi, the first qualification should be fearlessness. That's abhayam, we read. Because a sannyasi has to be alone without any support or guarantee of support, he has simply to depend on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one thinks, after I leave my connections, who will protect me, he should not accept the renounced order of life. One must be fully convinced that Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his localized aspect as the Paramatma, is always within, that he is seeing everything and he always knows what one intends to do. One must thus have firm conviction that Krishna, as Paramatma, will take care of a soul surrendered to him. I shall never be alone, one should think. Even if I live in the darkest regions of a forest, I shall be accompanied by Krishna, and he will give me all protection. That conviction is called abhayam, fearlessness. This state of mind is necessary for a person in the renounced order of life. So this fearlessness and this sense that one is never alone, one is supported by the Lord as the super soul, as Krishna in everyone's heart, is an essential feature of the sannyasi. And you can see it's not an easy consciousness to maintain. But that's what the successful sannyasis do. The sannyasa ashram was dormant in Gaudiya Vaishnavism until Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur revived it. Those who wanted to renounce the world, they took Babaji. Babaji means you've seen simply the short white loincloth, basically, and generally they go to Vrindavan and they stay there. They don't preach. They're bhajan, and they're always doing bhajan, chanting 64 rounds, 128 rounds, or more, and spending all their time simply, usually wandering in Vrindavan. Now, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, who was a spiritual master of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol, he spent years, decades, just touring Vrindavan, chanting and hearing, visiting the holy spots, remembering Krishna like that. But he, I don't know how he heard of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur may have visited Vrindavan or somewhere, but he was so erudite and so pure and wonderful in his explication of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, that he came all the way down to Navadvip, Mayapur, just to get Bhaktivinoda's association and to hear from him. And Bhaktivinoda recommended Bhaktisiddhanta, who was very erudite, he was an incredible scholar, to take shelter of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, who actually couldn't write his name. He was illiterate. But though he was illiterate, when he spoke, the pure Vedic teachings came out because he had heard and he was so enlightened. So that's a direct example of a Babaji. And of course, we also have Jagannath Das Babaji, recently, relatively in our sampradaya. And so that's certainly a legitimate ashram. But the sannyas is meant for preaching. The Babajis are not meant for preaching. They may preach here and there locally, but they don't travel. The sannyasis are meant to go on tour, as Lord Chaitanya did. And when he took sannyas, he had to take sannyas in the Mayavadi Sampradaya. Because it wasn't there in the Vaishnava Sampradaya. There was more this Babaji idea. So, but the sannyasi, the first thing is fearlessness, because you can imagine, you give up all your support, as Prabhupada did. He perfectly exemplified that. Coming to America, he had brothers who were sannyasis, but they had their support. They had their temple, and like all that. So, but often, you go traveling with a small group or even alone, and you have to be fearless that Krishna will protect. Krishna will take care of you, your needs. And Prabhupada showed that. He put his hands up and got on that boat. There's a chapter in the book, Bhakti-Vikas Swami, I don't know if you read it. It's all mentioned about Prabhupada getting on the boat, what that's significant. It's wonderful. Yeah, it's very well written. And what that signified, that Prabhupada was leaving whatever support he had in India. He had $7 or something. Then he sold some books on the boat, got a little more to the captain. But he basically just had Krishna. And then he wrote these beautiful poems on the boat. A beautiful poem, Vrindavan Bhajan, where one of the stanzas is, "I'm just longing for that time when I can convert with you in the groves of Vrindavan." He's writing directly to Krishna, feeling his presence. His diary is available. You can see what he wrote. And at one point he got very sick. There's no entries in the diary, just a big line. He'd never been on a boat like that. It was, he got seasick, he got a heart attack, and he always felt Krishna's presence. He said that, and when he reached when he first started being recorded, we have the recordings of his lectures in the 26th Second Avenue, and some actually before that. And how he told them that he never felt alone. He always felt the presence of his spiritual master. He always felt Krishna's presence. Now, apropos of that, there is an epidemic of loneliness in America. You may know that, and it's having devastating psychological effects on people. And they've done tests, that this loneliness has physical aspects, it can weaken your heart and all these different things. But devotees who are fully Krishna conscious, they always feel, even in the middle of the forest, or in a physically lonely position, you feel your companion with you. You don't feel lonely. And Prabhupada was, such an effective preacher, so pure, that wherever he went, he attracted people. When he was uptown, he also attracted a few to come, and then when he came downtown in Manhattan, of course, he had that first crew, and he had his support. And I listened to those early lectures that were so wonderful, 26 Second Avenue, 1966, And he says, here I'm living, and he gives this example basically, I came alone, but I have my friends who are protecting me, and I'm also eating, I'm also sleeping, Krishna's providing. There's a verse in the 8th chapter, famous verse. What is that? Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paripasate. Yeah. Tesham nityabhayuktanam yogakshemam bhahamyaham. For those who are always thinking of me, ananyas chintayan, ananyami, without any other subject of consciousness, Krishna's, your Krishna consciousness. Yejana paripasate, worship me. Tesham nityabhayuktanam, those who are always linked to me in bhakti, yogakshemam bhahamyaham. I personally carry their yoga and kshema. Now, yoga has many meanings. One of the meaning here is the things that you need for maintaining your body. Some food, a little shelter, clothing, that's your yoga. The kshema is your security. In other words, protection. You may have what you need, but if it's being threatened, there's an army coming over the hill, you don't have kshema. It's not any good. So Krishna says, for those who are always thinking of me without deviation, fully Krishna conscious, I personally provide what they lack and preserve what they have. That providing is the yoga kshema, and preserving is the kshema. So that's, Srila Prabhupada personified that. He showed the example. And devotees following in his footsteps, there's such a wonderful history of the spread of this movement. Some young devotee, there's a devotee in Laguna Beach. He's getting a little on in years now, as we all are. He was one of the first devotees, and he joined at 18. And I don't know, Prabhupada sent him to go to South Africa to join another devotee who was there, so that there'd be two of them. He was doing that. You go to Germany and start a center, and one devotee went there. He spoke German, So there's incredible heroism. So this devotee went, young devotee. His name is Trudhi. I'm not sure what that means. So he tells a story. I remember talking to him years ago when I first started going to Laguna. And so he went there to help this other devotee, and then the other devotee left. And so he's there all alone, 18-year-old kid, with a house to maintain and some books, to try to... But somehow or other, he made friends, probably some Indians, and they helped him, and he survived, and he sustained the center till more reinforcements could come, Isn't that an incredible story? But you can imagine the intensity, not just chanting, Krishna, 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 please. That's the way you're supposed to chant, to feel that urgency. So that's abhayam, this feeling of fearlessness. That's especially essential for the sannyasi, because he has to face all of these challenges. Okay, then he, again a sannyasi, has to purify his existence. This is sattva sangshuddhi. Sattva is existence. Sangshuddhi means completely purified. Then he, the sannyasi, has to purify his existence. There are so many rules and regulations to be followed in the renounced order of life. That's the sannyas. Most important of all, a sannyasi is strictly forbidden to have any intimate relationship with a woman. He is even forbidden to talk with a woman in a secluded place. Lord Chaitanya was an ideal sannyasi, and when he was at Puri, Jagannath Puri, his feminine devotees could not even come near to offer their respects. They were advised to bow down from a distant place. This is not a sign of hatred for women as a class, but it is a stricture imposed on the sannyasi not to have close connections with women. One has to follow the rules and regulations of a particular status of life in order to purify his existence. For a sannyasi, intimate relations with women and possession of wealth for sense gratification are strictly forbidden. The ideal sannyasi was Lord Chaitanya himself, and we can learn from his life that he was very strict in regards to women. Although he is considered to be the most liberal incarnation of Godhead, accepting the most fallen conditioned souls, he strictly followed the rules and regulations of the sannyas order of life in connection with association with women. One of his personal associates, namely Chota Haridas. Chota means younger. There's the elder Haridas and the younger Haridas. The elder Haridas is Haridas Thakur, I believe. But this was a young Haridas who was a great singer. He was associated with Lord Chaitanya, along with his other confidential personal associates. But somehow or other, this Chota Haridas looked lustily on a young woman, and Lord Chaitanya was so strict that he at once rejected him from the society of his personal associates. Lord Chaitanya said, "For a sannyasi or anyone who is aspiring to get out of the clutches of material nature and trying to elevate himself to the spiritual nature and go back home, back to Godhead, for him, looking toward material possessions and women for sense gratification, not even enjoying them, but just looking toward them with such a propensity, is so condemned that he had better commit suicide before experiencing such illicit desires." Quote, close quote. So these are the processes for purification. And in fact, this Chota Haridas, he at first the devotees, the other devotees of Lord Chaitanya were appealing to him to, allow him back in to the association. But after a long time, it wasn't going to happen. So he committed suicide, I think, by entering into the Ganges. And but then there's this painting where in his subtle body, he was like a Gandharva, he was still singing, and Lord Chaitanya was hearing him because he was a great singer. And he was singing, there's a wonderful painting of that. So in a sense, he was successful. But it's quite a lesson. It's very strict. Okay. So that's sannyasi, and I think there's some more qualities. No, the next one is for the householders. No? For Jnana Yoga, yeah.
So this book was published before the Chaitanya Charitamrita or after?
Yes, it was.
Oh, I find it interesting. I won't get into the whole, you know what I'm talking about though, because when this was in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because this is in more detail in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, all the devotees were like, "What is this?" Right? But it was already mentioned in Bhagavad Gita.
Mentioned there,
but it was mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. But I just didn't realize
great details. But
right?
There, it's very dramatic,
Okay, I haven't read that part yet, so I don't know.
And this book, this Gita came out in 72, and the CC came out in 75. So there was, there's a lot of revelation that came out with the CC. Okay, next item is Jnana Yoga Bhavastiti, which means being engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. Again, sannyasis. Sannyasi life is meant for distributing knowledge to the householders and others who have forgotten their real life of spiritual advancement. A sannyasi is supposed to beg from door to door for his livelihood, but this does not mean that he's a beggar. Humility is also one of the qualifications of a transcendentally situated person, and out of sheer humility, the sannyasi goes from door to door, not exactly for the purpose of begging, but to see the householders and awaken them to Krishna consciousness. This is the duty of a sannyasi. If he is actually advanced and so ordered by his spiritual master, he should preach Krishna consciousness with logic and understanding. And if one is not so advanced, he should not accept the renounced order of life. But even if one has accepted the renounced order of life without sufficient knowledge, he should engage himself fully in hearing from a bona fide spiritual master to cultivate knowledge. A sannyasi, or one in the renounced order of life, must be situated in fearlessness, sattva saṅshuddhi, purity, and jnana yoga, knowledge. The next item is charity. So that's the sannyasis. Now he goes to the gṛhasthas, who are in a position to give charity. Charity is meant for the householders. The householders should earn a livelihood by an honorable means and spend 50% of their income to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. Thus, a householder should give in charity to institutional societies that are engaged in that way. Charity should be given to the right receiver. There are different kinds of charity, as will be explained later on. Charity in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Charity in the mode of goodness is recommended by the scriptures. But charity in the modes of passion and ignorance is not recommended because it is simply a waste of money. Charity should be given only to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. That is charity in the mode of goodness. Then as far as Dhamma, self-control, is concerned, it is not only meant for other orders of religious society, but is especially meant for the householder. I think this was fixed. It is meant. What is meant here, if you will forgive me. Then, as far as Dhamma, self-control, is concerned, it is meant for all orders of religious society, but it's especially meant for the householder. Doesn't that make more sense? It's meant for all orders. I mean, self-control is the central principle of bhakti, if you're going to pronounce it. But it's especially meant for the household. Although he has a wife, a householder should not use his senses for sex life unnecessarily. There are restrictions for the householders even in sex life, which should only be engaged in for the propagation of children. If he does not require children, he should not enjoy sex life with his wife. Modern society enjoys sex life with contraceptive methods or more abominable methods to avoid the responsibility of children. This is not in the transcendental quality, but is demoniac. If anyone, even if he is a householder, wants to make progress in spiritual life, he must control his sex life, and should not beget a child without the purpose of serving Krishna. If he is able to beget children who will be in Krishna consciousness, one can produce hundreds of children, but without this capacity, one should not indulge only for sense pleasure. So there's a famous verse by Lord Rishabhdev, in which this is mentioned. Guru nasatsat, swajano nasatsat, pita nasatsat, janani nasatsat, daiva nasatsat, napatishcha satsat, namochayejak samabhetam mrityum. The last line means, if one cannot, na mochayet, liberate, samupeta mrityum, from the path of birth and death, then one should not become any of these. Basically, anyone who has responsibility for anyone else should not become a guru, a relative, a father, a mother, a wife, or a demigod, if one cannot liberate one's wards from birth and death. Now, I thought about that. Recently, in the last year or two, I was thinking, well, what does that really mean? Because we have so many householders. Some of them are very responsible, very Krishna conscious, and they had children, and they, raised them and gave them as Krishna conscious an education as possible, and everything was pure. But everyone's a free agent. In other words, in spite of that, the child can still get some bad association, and it's happened. They're not. I mean, they may just go to college and have a regular career, but they're not really devotees. They're not interested. So does that mean you're disqualified as a parent? You tried your best, you led a pure life, you gave them all of it. In other words, the way it's worded is that if you can't do this, then don't become a parent. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, because everyone's a free agent. That this child I'm raising at a certain point is going to make his own decision. So I may have done everything right, I trained him, and we all offered our food. We had kirtan every evening, whatever. But it just didn't take. It happens like that. So I think what the verse means is that if you do everything that you can according to the Shastra in raising your child, both in conception and in raising and all of these things, then you're meeting your responsibility. But everyone is a free agent. You have a minute independence. And despite that, it's still, and that's what we find. There are wonderful devotees who've been raised in devotee families, and they're doing wonderful service now. But some of them, what often happens, they go to college, and in that association, their determination to be Krishna conscious often wanes. But anyway, it's just that's what it's meant. That there's a responsibility in having children and training children up, because this is how society passes from one generation to another. And if you can actually train a child to be a devotee in the line of ISKCON, line of Prabhupada, that means you're doing so much good for all others who they come in contact with, because they'll also be giving Krishna consciousness. Like we have this, some of you may know, he's a famous Kirtaniya. What's his name? Oh, God. Bhardraja's son, do you know? I'm sorry? Bhardraj, he's an artist. His Rukmini, he and Rukmini, their son, is famous Kirtaniya. Yes, Gauravani. Gauravani, thank you. I'm sorry, my brain doesn't work. So, what a wonderful gift has been to the world. I mean, he inherited his father's musical propensities, and he was trained. And his internet, his kirtans, 1 million hits is not unusual. That's a wonderful thing. So there's many devotees like that. Vishwambar, I know his father quite well, Bhadra, and his mother, Anangamantari. And he's also part of the Mayapuri group, and everything. Yeah, wonderful drummer, wonderful singer. So this is, this being realized. The children were raised and they become preachers and successful. Yeah, go ahead.
So that verse you were talking about, I guess isn't it kind of also saying everyone should be Krishna conscious? Because you were talking about how people who are Krishna conscious, they'll do their best, but sometimes it doesn't take. But that's fine. But people who don't know about Krishna at all, they don't even have a chance, right?
Yeah.
So pretty much.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's this idea of having a ward, someone who you have tremendous influence over, your child or your student, there's a guru like that. So that's tremendous responsibility because their fate is in your hands. If you're Krishna conscious and you understand the urgency of it and you're responsible, then you do everything in your power to give them that gift of Krishna consciousness. That's the actual nature of the acharya. Parents are meant to be have that acharya principle. Acharya comes from the word achar, which means behavior. There's 3 qualities of the bona fide acharya. Knows the Shastra as it is, lives by the Shastra, and teaches it. It's better than learn it, live it, give it. It's a little phrase. And we're all meant to be like that, in our own little way. We're meant to learn this science, practice it, live it, and give it as far as possible, because it's the greatest benediction for mankind. Yes, it's good to just give charity, to do all these other things, material charity, but that's temporary. This knowledge and the practice and the inspiration to practice Krishna consciousness is for the eternal benefit of the soul. It's an exponentially different quality of charity. So, yes, there's certainly free will, and you may not perfectly execute all of the elements of the ashram or varna that you're in. But if you're sincere, you're trying your best, then Krishna can provide what you lack, and preserve what you have. That's all we can do. Okay. As far as Dhamma, self-control is concerned, it's not meant for... Okay, we read that. Sacrifice is another item to be performed by the householders because sacrifice requires a large amount of money. Those in other orders of life, namely the brahmacarya, vānaprastha, and sannyāsa, have no money. They live by begging. So performance of different types of sacrifice is meant for the householders. They should perform Agni-hotra sacrifices as enjoined in the Vedic literature, but such sacrifices at the present moment are very expensive, and it is not possible for any householder to perform them. Often Prabhupada would mention, where are the qualified Brahmins to chant all the mantras? When you actually, in South India still it's going on to a degree, you have the Brahmins who are chanting the mantras, then you have the referee Brahmins who will listen to the other Brahmins chant and they interrupt and they correct them if they're making a mistake. So it's each Brahmin requires charity. It's very expensive. Where are the Brahmins? Where is so now probably the solution is it is not possible for the house to perform them. The best sacrifice recommended in this stage is called the Sankirtan Yajna. This Sankirtan Yajna, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the best and most inexpensive sacrifice. Everyone can adopt it and derive benefit. So these 3 items, namely charity, sense control, and performance of sacrifice, are meant for the householders. Then, svadhyaya, Vedic study, is meant for brahmacharya, or student life. Brahmacharis should have no connection with women. They should live a life of celibacy and engage the mind in the study of Vedic literature for cultivation of spiritual knowledge. This is called svadhyaya. Now, it doesn't mean that the householders should not study. It means that when the sannyasis, they should also study. Everyone should study Prabhupada's books. But it's especially essential for the brahmacharya because they're coming up. They're young kids, and they're trained. What they study when they're young is going to affect their whole lives, and they can become very expert. Tapas, or austerity, is especially meant for the retired life. One should not remain a householder throughout his whole life. He must always remember that there are 4 divisions of life: brahmacarya, gṛhastha, vānaprastha, and sannyāsa. So after gṛhastha, householder life, one should retire. If one lives for 100 years, he should spend 25 years in student life, 25 in householder life, 25 in retired life, and 25 in the renounced order of life. These are the regulations of the Vedic religious discipline. A man retired from household life must practice austerities of the body, mind, and tongue. That is tapasya. The entire varṇāśrama-dharma society is meant for tapasya. Without tapasya or austerity, no human being can get liberation. The theory that there is no need of austerity in life, that one can go on speculating and everything will be nice, is recommended neither in the Vedic literature nor in the Bhagavad Gita. Such theories are manufactured by show-bottle spiritualists who are trying to gather more followers. If there are restrictions, rules, and regulations, people will not become attracted. Therefore, those who want followers in the name of religion just to have a show only don't restrict the lives of their students, nor their own lives. But that method is not approved by the Vedas. So this is the corruption of this Vedic teachings, is that in the name of, what should I say, making a killing? They come from India, no one knows anything, and he has the aspect, he has the beard, he has the show, and he can throw through mantras, and you get a following. No restriction, just come and we'll do a little, the Surya Namaskar is very valuable, Namaskar. And there are so many who came before Prabhupada and after Prabhupada. And, you get on the internet and this one has millions of followers, because they don't give the 4 regular principles. Prabhupada said, if I didn't give that, I'd have millions of followers. But what good would it do? This is a sign of a real acharya, is that he was not going to compromise the principles in the name of getting a lot of name and fame and wealth. That's the corruption. And Prabhupada showed that. He started out with no wealth, and he really ended up with no wealth. Whatever he got, he put into the book fund. He built temples. He sent his devotees to far off corners of the world, and sure enough, they were able to attract followers there, and that meant that another area was there, which were people were contributing, and they were sustaining the movement. And he would sometimes speak. As the movement went on, you hear lectures from different periods. And so maybe in the 1973-74, he's in some far-flung city in India or Australia, and he says, I came to America with 7 rupees, and now I have 7 crores, so that's quite an investment. But that wasn't my motive. Krishna provided it, because he was using the wealth for preaching, and that's the best investment. Just see the percentage of increase. It's still increasing. A crore is 10 million. And then you say, yeah, is it rupees or dollars? Well, even if it's rupees, it's still a lot of money. Rupee is like worth, 5 cents now or something? When I went to India first, it was worth 12.5 cents. There were 8 rupees to $1. That was in the early 70s. Now it's, 80 rupees to $1. Oh, they're saying that?
Yeah.
Who's saying that?
All the 35 countries, they have dumped US dollar.
Oh, they're dumping the dollar now.
And they're accepting the rupee.
I see. Okay, we'll see how that works out. We're not going to talk about that. We're not into it. But the idea is that, Prabhupada, whether he had 7 rupees or $7 million, he was using it for Krishna. And therefore, if it was lost, well, okay. Let's keep chanting. And if it's multiplied 1 million times, all right, let's keep chanting. Let's print some books. That's why we have all these books. Prabhupada sacrificed so much. All right, we've come to kind of the end of our session, so a couple little poems. Where are we here? tapasya, second paragraph in 620, I think we started. Yeah. So, I was thinking of a verse about the holy name, which is one of the first little poems I ever wrote, actually. This is the first verse of a book. It's a wonderful book, which I can make it available if you want. It's called Ashtadasha Chanda or Leela Chanda. Chanda refers to the meter. So this is a summary of Krishna's Vrindavan Leela. That's the Leela part. Vrindavan Leela, in verses of all kinds of varied meters, you know. So he starts off with a wonderful little verse about the glories of the holy name. So Krishna killed a demon called Mura. Therefore he's known as Murari, and that's the name he refers to. Jiya nama murare prema murandasya navvimada bindam bhavadihida basopi svachadilam mukti muktaya. Which means, all glories to the holy name of Krishna, Mura's foe, that name's a blooming lotus with ambrosia overflowing, the soothing balm of love of God to cure all pain and woe. Just a dim reflection of that name, even slightly glowing, is like a drop of purest rain that falls within an oyster's shell and brings about the pearl of liberation from this earthly hell. There's a lot in there. That's how he starts the Leela Chanda. And just I'll give you, I won't be able to give you a translation, but here's a sample of these Leela. Actually, one of them, my favorite, is you can play a drum, you know. Altanaka mahasankulitamaka shakadadastana shayanadamaka kuchadasa chishna vidichtadodana chanchala patikuta shakadavinodana. Now in that one verse you have the Krishna knocking over the cart demon, you know, he was just a little baby lying on his back, you know. And he was upset because his mother was distracted and she was greeting all the guests for the festival. There's a festival called Uttana in the Vedic culture. It's only for married women with children, not for men or even single women. And so they all come to celebrate the child. He's no longer just lying on his back. He's on his belly now and he's about ready to crawl. That's progress. So Krishna was still lying on his back, and he wanted to suck his mother's breast, but she was busy greeting the guests. And so he kicked his feet, and he knocked over this cart, big cart with all kinds of utensils, and a big, huge crash. And what happened? What happened to the child? There were other little children who were a little older than him who were assigned to watch the baby. So there's this cart, you know, broken down, but he wasn't hurt, of course. And so the kids were saying, yes, Krishna moved his feet, and he hit the cart, and the whole thing collapsed. He said, yeah, right. You know, look at those little feet. You know, their little delicate feet. They didn't believe him. So but you can hear, you know, that's the whole pastime. But if you know the pastime in detail from reading the Bhagavatam or the Gopal Champu, then all those details also flood into you. You're reminded of it. That's the whole idea. So that's just one little sample of the verses, you know, and that's all poetry. You can hear the meter and the rhyme, you know. So I'm praying that I get the time and the inspiration to put that into English poetry, that summary of Krishna's Vrindavan Leela, because that's where it's at. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Let's greet the deities in a few minutes. Hari Bol.